Hi there. So this is going to be the first practice problem set that we're going to work through PS 1.1 Fundamentals number one. And so normally in class, we would have you guys working through this in groups and things like that. But just for these videos, what I'm going to do is actually work through them as if I'm a student, just like you. So hopefully I get the answers right. So let's start with part A, true, false, thinking like an economist. This is going to be a little tough, and I bet by the end of it, some of you are going to be mad at me. But we'll smooth those feathers over. We'll be okay. So first one, because it is desirable, sunshine is scarce. And so thinking through that here, just because something is desirable does not necessarily actually make it scarce. In this case, sunshine isn't necessarily really that limited, right? I mean, in theory, I guess you could put up this huge, solar screen or something and make it limited, but in reality, it's not. So we're going to say false. Just because something is desirable does not necessarily make it scarce. And then the second one says because it is limited, polio is scarce. Well, that is true. Polio is limited. That doesn't really make it scarce. You actually have to have a conceivable human want for something. And in most realistic terms, it's not, right? Now, I guess if you were a researcher and you wanted to really nitpick this to death, but in general, polio is not desirable. So we would say false. Polio is a disease, not good. Because water covers 3/4 of your surface, it cannot be considered scarce. Well, no, it's not true. Just because you have a lot of something doesn't mean it's not scarce, right? Scarcity doesn't mean that it's rare. It actually just means that you don't have enough of the particular thing to satisfy all of the different conceivable human wants for it. So again, this one's false. So 3 falses in a row. Man, you're not supposed to write tests like that. Number 4, the cost of going to college is tuition, room, and board. Nope. Remember, we talked about this. Opportunity cost and cost, when we mean this in this class, is what you give up. So it's actually what you would have done with the money that you spent on tuition, room, and board. So this one's false. Very tricky, Mr. G. Number 5, if St. Louis, that's where we are, right? I think so, St. Louis, puts a tax on Cardinals tickets, both the spectators and the team share the burden. Now, this one is actually, most people would say, well, yeah, of course so, you share the burden. What we're going to learn, and this is the warrior, this is going to make you mad, is this one's false. In fact, it depends, and it depends a lot on a concept called elasticity, right? It's like a stretchiness. And we're going to learn that one later in Unit 2. So I'm going to put that one there, Unit 2. Number 6, you get what you pay for. That is such a common phrase, right? You get what you pay for, right? Wrong, you don't. You don't get what you pay for. Now, we're going to learn that one also in Unit 2, why you get more than what you pay for. But I can give it to you a simple reason for why you don't get what you pay for. The last time you went out and you bought something, maybe you went to Qdoba and you bought a burrito. If you paid, you paid maybe $7 for that burrito, would you have been willing to pay $7.25? Yes? Okay, well then you got $7.25 worth of burrito in your head, but what you paid was only 7. So you don't always get what you pay for. Usually you get more than what you paid for. If someone makes an economic gain, someone else loses. Now, that's another one where a lot of people often think that's true, but that's not, right? If that's true, then why would Qdoba sell you the burrito in the first place? You're not losing. You're doing it because you like burritos. And Qdoba's doing it because they're gaining too. So that one's false as well. If one nation produces everything better than another nation, there's no reason for these two nations to trade. That one's false. That one's a really common misconception. We're actually going to deal with that one in Unit 1. And I forgot to say, this one's a Unit 2. So we're going to do that. We're going to do a couple of these in Unit 2. An unregulated monopoly tends to charge the highest possible price, right? We learned that, John D. Rockefeller, oh, what a bad guy. No, they don't do that. They don't charge the highest possible price, but they do overcharge, right? So this is the tricky part here. They don't charge the very highest. They just charge over what they should be. Number 10, a business owner's decision to show care for their customers is a decision to accept lower profits. And that's also just not true because there are many good reasons for why you might want to care about your customers. Now, this part B is something that I think benefits if you actually have a conversation with somebody about. So I would encourage you to find somebody in your house to explain this idea to and just say, like, here's what opportunity cost is, or at least what this rando in the video says it is, and how does this concept relate to opportunity cost? So I'll give you 2 of them, and maybe you go do the other 2. I'll say more people enroll in graduate school when the job market is poor. Well, the reason why is if you're thinking about it from the perspective of somebody who's like, should I go to graduate school or should I go get a job? Right? If you could go get a really great job right now, then the cost of going to graduate school is really high. You're giving up a really great job. But if there aren't that many jobs out there right now, well, then, you might as well go to graduate school, because then you can beef up your training and that sort of thing. So the idea is opportunity cost is changing with the value of the job market. I'll do number 3. There are more parks in suburban areas than in urban areas. And this one's tricky, but you think about it like this, is that the cost of allocating land to a park is really high in urban areas, right? The value of land is very high in most urban areas, and the density of land or of buildings and things. And so it's a high opportunity cost to just say, you know what, we're going to create a park. We're just going to let nature run its course. Whereas in a suburban area, the cost is lower usually. Now let's talk normative and positive. Now this one is, if you remember, normative is what should be and positive is what is. When people must pay higher taxes on their wage earnings, it reduces their incentive to work. And that is a fact, right? It's true that if I take away your money when you earn more of it, then it actually takes away your incentive to do it. So this is a positive statement, so I'm going to put a P. The second statement says, and this is why I put it in here, we should lower taxes to encourage more work. Right? Notice the difference between the first and the second statement. The second one is a normative statement. The first statement is true, but it doesn't necessarily follow that therefore we should lower taxes to encourage more work. Right? So you see the difference there between a positive and a normative judgment. The third one I've had students argue both on. So I'll say the system of public education in this country generates greater benefits to society than the cost of running the system. I think it depends on how you quantify benefits and costs, right? But if you start including all of the external benefits, all the external costs, I would say that it's a true statement, right? At least it's hard to get someone to believe in something when their paycheck depends on them not believing it. And that's a very famous quote. And I want to say it's Aldous Huxley, but I'll go back and I'll check that out. Now, the U.S. unemployment rate is holding steady at 7.2%. Now, these we're going to say micro, macro, and normative positive. So for this one, this is a macro. So I'm going to say A for macro and I for micro, because I don't like writing that much. And then this is a positive statement. It just says this is what it is. Congress should lower taxes, blah, 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 blah. That's macro because it's Congress. And I've underlined hopefully the helpful words here. And it's a normative statement saying this is what should happen. Colleges should lower the tuition for freshmen and sophomores. Now this one's going to be micro because it's one kind of business, right? So if we said shoe stores should lower the prices of shoes so that people don't go shoeless, then we would say, well, that's micro. It's one firm, one market, that kind of thing. And it's still a normative judgment. The prices of goods are rising. So in general, right, all of the goods are rising, then that's macro, and it's positive. It's fact, because it just is, and all of the goods put together. Cutting tax rates will grow the economy and help middle-class workers. And so this one is the whole economy, so we're going to say macro. But this idea of help middle-class workers and the will grow, we're maybe making a should, it should happen. I'm probably going to get some pushback on this one, but I'll go ahead and say this one is normative. U.S. companies, so that's pretty clear, a macro, the whole country, are selling this much machinery to Germany, a positive statement. Clayton High School should allocate reserve, oh, that one's easy, right? Micro. And normative. And I don't know if they should or not. I don't know, maybe you tell me in the comments whether you think they should. If Schnucks lowered prices, people would buy more groceries. Schnucks is a grocery store here, so we would say micro. And this is actually a true statement. If there are lower prices, people buy more of the stuff. It's literally a law in economics. We call it the law of demand. Prices are inversely related to the quantity of things that people purchase. So that is a true statement. It's just positive. Movie ticket prices, and this one is micro again because it's one market, will increase by 5% this year. Now, I've seen some people argue that predictive statements are normative. And that's true in certain cases, like in this one here, where it's like, they will help these people. But if it's more like saying, no, they're actually just going to increase 5%. If this were maybe the movie ticket CEO saying this, then that's kind of a positive statement, right? But I could see an argument into the normative. With all of these, don't get freaked out if you're like, I don't see that one exactly. I thought it was the other one. That's okay. That's perfectly fine. These are really designed to get you to stretch your thinking rather than, how the test is going to look. This is more just think about the words. College athletes, so again, micro, because it's one small market. a big market, but not the whole economy, should be paid to play. That's a normative judgment. So hopefully this helps you with understanding the fundamentals a little bit more. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.